Good afternoon, one and all. Welcome you all to Vayomanasa Sanjeevani's webinar series. Today's topic for the day is legal help for senior citizens. To talk about this, we have Advocate Veerabhadrappa sir, and we have Jao Sunil and Dr. P.T. Shivkumar. And our host for the day is Shakuntala. Ma'am, I welcome you to host our show, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone who is present in this webinar of this VMS, Legal Help for Senior Citizens. So it gives me immense pleasure to welcome our panelist, Mr. P. Veerabhadrappa, Advocate, sir, and Mrs. Usha. Then a brief introduction about them. Yeah. Mr. Veerabhadrappa is an advocate. He has done his BCom, LLB, MBA, and is practicing in Family Court, High Court, and is a legal committee chairman, All India Senior Citizens Federation, and also KSL SA Nimans Legal Service Center. Advocate Usha Sunil is an advocate at Karnataka Legal Service Authority. And as a P.T. Shivkumar, Dr. P.T. Shivkumar, sir, is a professor, Department of Psychiatry, Geriatric Clinic and Services, Nimans. Welcome you all, sir, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Shakuntala madam. I think whenever we kind of come across elderly people in our clinical practice, so legal issues is one of the important considerations what we have. So both in terms of people who have mental health issues, either it is involving the children and other family members in terms of as to who provides support, sometimes dispute between the family members, sometimes elderly members, they have properties and then they get the property gets cheated by somebody because of their cognitive impairment. So we in every patient, when we actually evaluate, this becomes one of the important issue. When we talk of legal services, in the context of today's this one, we also need to understand that the legal services clinic for senior citizens, which has been functioning in Nimans and was inaugurated by the then Honorable Chief Justice of the Karnataka High Court. This was a part of the implementation of a legal services scheme for senior citizens, NALSA Legal Services Scheme for Senior Citizens, which actually has a mandate to ensure that all the welfare schemes for elderly people, which are provided by the government and their rights are actually the legal services needs to help that. And in this context, we also need to know that there is an act which governs the maintenance and welfare of senior citizens, which is the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act 2007. So again, this is an act, even though 13 years have passed, more than 13 years, still a lot of people don't know, even the senior citizens as well as their family members, many of them don't know about the provisions of this act. And Nimans, along with the Karnataka State Legal Service Authority, were trying to implement this scheme in Karnataka. And one of our main mandates was to spread awareness about this legal services scheme, as well as the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act. So in this context, we had done series of programs across Karnataka, zone-wise, one in Bangalore, one in, Mangalore, and then in Belgavi. We had conducted sensitization of various stakeholders, including police, the legal service, people who are part of the legal services, the District Legal Service Authority, member secretaries, panel advocates, paralegal volunteers, as well as the general public, senior citizens, who are the main kind of stakeholders in this act. And there are some amendments which are actually being pending now to make it more powerful. That is one context which we need to do. And because of the COVID, the operational functioning of the legal services clinic had actually got stopped because of the risk due to COVID exposure. Now it is again has resumed. And the panel advocates from the Karnataka State Legal Service Authority have been visiting the center at Nimans, and Mr. Veerabhadrappa, as well as the team of advocates. I thank both of you, Madam and Veerabhadrappa sir, for participating in this program today. And you have been our support in kind of delivering these services, and we are trying to activate this. So earlier the legal services clinic was only available for persons with mental illness and was available only a half day. It was there on only 3 days a week. With the expansion of this activity to senior citizens, not only those who are having problems of mental illness, this is applicable for any senior citizen. So any senior citizen can avail service within the scope of the legal services scheme and what is eligible as per the Legal Services Act. Within that scope, they can actually get services. I'm sure our panelists, the experts, advocates would actually throw more light on this. So with this, I would like to emphasize that even though this service is actually available in demands, we are trying to, through this online program, as well as trying to reach out as to how we can make it more useful and accessible for people across the Bangalore as well as across Karnataka. So one of the possibilities we can explore is to have some kind of teleconsultations also. That is in future, it may be because this is a place where, particularly for people with mental illness, when it comes to mental illness, here the availability of the experts from mental health as well as the advocates sitting in one kind of group, we can actually try to provide some kind of guidance and consultation, even if somebody seeks a video consultation kind of appointments. That is something which we have a plan in future. It is right now, it is not operational, but this is something the scope of services can expand. Not all of them can come to demands and get services. So this awareness initiative is to reach out so that people can seek help, because I think the legal service authority is there entire Karnataka, from the district level to taluk level. There is a legal service authority. So people can seek help even from closer to their place. So that is another important. The network is very strong, and it's pan Karnataka and it's pan India. Actually, every state has such a missionary, and many people may not know about this. So such a facility being available. So with this, I will stop here. Ms. Sakuntala, madam, you can take it forward.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the introduction. So over to you, sir, Vidabhadrapa sir and the other Mrs. Usha Sunil. Over to you, sir.
Shakuntala madam.
Yes, sir.
We used to come to the Nimans Legal Center, and generally earlier we had many senior citizens. They used to come earlier to COVID. Now senior citizens are not coming. Now only the patients of the Nimans who are inpatient, they used to come to us. And I have given one of the case study.
Yes,
one Mr. inpatient in Nimans Unit 2 was admitted, and now he is under treatment with his mental illness. His mother is now is presently she is the attendant to him and taking care of him from past many years. The patient's father is a government servant, and the patient's mother do not have any source of income, and she has filed a case in the court for maintenance, and she used to receive it, and suddenly from past 1 year she is not getting the maintenance. Now she contacted me what to do. I said that already an order has been passed by the magistrate court for maintenance of rupees so and so, and if it is not executed, I mean, they are already filed for execution. She received it from past 2 years, but suddenly it has been stopped. She is not remitting to the bank account. He was not directly used to give the check to the court. Now I made a suggestion to that lady. See that you go to an advocate who can avail free of service from the district or taluka level magistrate court, and file for an execution. If they file for execution, he has to come and pay it. Otherwise, there are some, according to the rules of the, I mean, it is a contempt of court if it doesn't pay. Then necessary action will be taken by the court. through an advocate it can be done. Since she is here, and I think after some time she may discharge, but where she has to go? Again, she has to depend upon the salary income of her husband. So this is the suggestion which I have made to her. She has agreed, and she's contacting the local legal service authority for necessary action. This is the first case which I have dealt.
Okay, sir.
Any Shakuntala madam?
No, sir, you just present your this thing. At the end, there are some questions, sir.
Yeah.
Wherein you can answer them like.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other cases also, that you can discuss about that. Yeah.
Madam, before going ahead with the cases,
Yeah.
I would request Mr. Virabhadrappa sir to give a summary of the scope of the legal services clinic.
Yes, sir.
The legal services scheme, as to what kind of benefits for senior citizens, actually which kind of services falls under this scope, for which they can seek help. I think that will be helpful for us.
Yes.
Shakuntala madam, some of the senior citizens, they approach the center. They say that they are from their hard-earned money, they construct the house. And one of the questions, they give it for rent. And the tenant, if tenant is good, it's okay, no problem. But there are many complaints from the senior citizens that since they are not getting the rent regularly, or they have become continuously default, what should we do? What is the remedy for them? They were asking. I suggested the concerned jurisdictional police, if you go there, make a complaint that so-and-so is a tenant, and give the details and ask for vacating the house or for payment of the rent. And they said, sir, police is nothing to do with the, this is a civil case and other things. But once personally I went to a particular jurisdiction of police, made a complaint, but action must come out. If it doesn't come out, then we contact the commissioner and the concerned deputy commissioner of police. And they definitely helped us, because there is some instruction, a circular from the DIG stating that a direction is issued to all the police stations, that wherever the citizens are there, you make a list of senior citizens and what are their problems, please attend to it. That's what the circular says. So I requested the concerned DCP and the jurisdictional police, and in many cases they have helped to vacate the house, and or otherwise they make instruction to make the rent every month regularly. This is one of the cases. And there are some cases that there are some patients here. They may be the senior citizens. They have a lot of property, but they don't have the regular income, monthly income. In that case, what we should do? We have got the property and our sons are not taking care of. There are two options. One is that under CRPC 125, they can file a maintenance, they can ask for maintenance. And there is also authority, we call it as a tribunal, assistant commissioner tribunal, the concerned divisional magistrate. He will take action. So if you make an application, here advocate is not necessary. Directly they go to the assistant commissioner, who is the tribunal chairman. If you make just a letter, they take action and they call upon their children and instruct them or making the payment. These are the two alternatives wherein the maintenance can be get elder person, senior citizen.
Okay, you said if they can't go personally, like the senior citizens, some people they can't go, like they need the help of the others to take them to these places to file any complaint or anything like that. Is there any online suggestions for them? Can it be done online, or if any legal aid they can get within their house premises, like?
Yeah, you can even they can speak to the concerned district level legal service authority or the local level service authority. They say that we want to help of the legal service for making an application. That can be done. And online, I have to check up and let you know.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Isn't there's a helpline number, sir? Legal Services Authority has a helpline, toll-free helpline number.
Yes, it is there.
there is a helpline number,
Yes.
and that can be used to seek some guidance.
Guidance from the Legal Service Authority.
From Legal Service
They
Authority.
provide the advocates, and they make the application on their behalf of the client, and they can file application with the tribunal or with the court, concerned court, family court. They take care of.
So what Madam has asked is, say how much of outreach is possible. This is something like in people who are kind of immobile and who are not able to visit offices. We really need to take these things to actually provide services at their doorstep. This can happen with the participation of volunteers.
Correct.
This is something like it's very, very difficult for advocates also to go to their doorstep and do. But I think one of the things which our clinic, the Legal Services Clinic for Senior Citizens, can explore is to use the volunteers. Maybe once the COVID things are better, and the volunteers can actually, the paralegal volunteers can actually provide outreach, and they can link with advocates, and we can use the technology to provide support. So every time you need not make the senior citizen to come to a particular place. So that is a real challenge for them to navigate transport, and then many of them will have physical disabilities, frailty. So I think this is something which, with the consultation with the Legal Service Authority, we will try to kind of explore an outreach service.
So last 15 days back, the Karnataka, the district, Bengaluru Urban District Legal Service Authority, they conducted the meeting for volunteers. They appointed about 150 volunteers.
Okay.
And there is also list. Any senior citizen can contact the Legal Service Authority or Bengaluru Urban. They give the list of volunteers, and they can easily reach to their doorstep. So senior citizen need not go out. The volunteers will come to their doorstep. About 15 days, there's a list which I can get it from the Bengaluru Urban Senior Legal Service Authority.
So one of the main reasons, one of the main ways by which the Legal Services Clinic and the Legal Service Authority, the panel advocates, can be helpful is to provide clarity to them. Many of them, they get, they may not be able to afford lawyers, or they may not be able to go and seek some, even if they, sometimes they have a lawyer, they might want some kind of a validation, whether I'm being guided correctly or not. Is this the best option, what I have? Certain things, the legal system takes a lot of time for remedy, and they may not have complete trust, and they may want to have a second opinion kind of a thing, validation, whether this is the right remedy, what I can get, am I in the right direction? So it's a big distressing thing for them when they have to wait for legal remedies. And in many of the examples where you said, whether it's a property issue or whether it is something like a rent, I know senior citizens who have been who have given their property for rent, and some of them, very difficult for them to get it vacated. So they become a vulnerable target. So in this context, we have actually seen some of the case studies from Hyderabad. There is a Tata Trust is having a helpline, and even in Bangalore there is a helpline. So many times through the helpline also they seek help, and then they try to do it. But once it goes to a civil case, it becomes a very lengthy process.
Yes.
It is there's no shortcut once it goes into civil case. So before that, if there is a negotiation, if something can be done, it's fine. But I know people who have got into civil case, and it is for years it will go on. Yes. So I don't think there is a easy answer for that.
Sir, there is in our Senior Citizen Welfare and Act that there is a provision that there is a clause, there is a rule that the appellate authority is the assistant commissioner. So he will take care of property. Property is not given. Property he has already made a gift in the name of the children, and the tribunal will issue the order cancelling the gift deed, writing instruction to the sub-registrar. At the same time, they also write to the jurisdictional police for vacating the, if the children is there in his own house, the police will take action for vacating it.
Yeah, I think
protect the property. To protect the property, there is a rule in Maintenance Act. There is an act. It will take care of by the sub-registrar and the jurisdictional police.
The
Get
scope
property
of
back.
scope of the Maintenance Act comes only with the family members. If they have actually given the property as a gift deed, or they have given to children or any other dependents where they've said that so out of good faith that they will be taking care of them. So if that is condition is not met, then they actually can claim the property back. In case of other things like where they've given for rent, this Maintenance Act will not come into play. That's a more of a civil dispute. But this Maintenance Act is primarily with son and daughter or family members where they've given the gift deed. I think that is a very, very powerful act, and where there are judgments where people have claimed back the property. This is a big kind of powerful weapon which can be used even if they have given the property. I somewhere I read the recent judgment where they said it should become a norm that when they actually the gift deed is given, they should write conditional to taking care of the parents. One of the judges had given a verdict like that.
You're right.
So I think we have been seeing quite a few litigations in the media about this provision being applied. So, and sometimes there are instances of some alleged misuse also is there. So that when we had done interactive programs with senior citizens, one of these issues comes is that some people try to misuse this provision also. Any good law has both sides. There are people who use and there are people who misuse. So that is also there.
Another thing, suppose if they don't have a child, if they don't have the children, no issues for them. They got the property. Then what they do, they give it to they make some guardian or caretaker. Even they don't take care. Even the court can issue, appellate can issue the order. Since you are going to get after their death, you are going to receive this property. Hence, you are also liable to take care of the old persons. That is there. And,
since you mentioned about guardianship, sir, this is one important issue which we as a clinicians we face. Many times there is a person with disability who has dementia or who cannot take care of themselves, and children are not there. Only siblings are there, or some other family members are there. So how, or if there are children, there is a dispute among children. They don't have a cordial relationship, or they don't have a consensus opinion. So spouse is not there. Only one senior citizen is there. One parent is there. So how do we go about this process of getting guardianship? What is the legal remedy, or what are the procedures? How one has to apply for a guardianship, and how long generally that process takes? So, Madam, both of you, any of you can actually throw light. Maybe, Madam, would you be able to address this question? Guardianship, as to this is a commonly encountered problem as a clinician, and many of the family members ask, because there's a bank account, they have a pension, sometimes they come, there are property incomes from rent incomes, but there are no authorized person who's actually managing, because the children fight among each other, or there are no children, there are only other family members who are available.
Recently, one case had come to the clinic in which a brother was taking care of the elder sister, who was earlier working and she was getting pension, but now she was unable to take care of herself because of her mental condition was not proper, and she was admitted here. And he used to come with her and take care of her. Now he says that when she is getting a pension, she is not able to come and sign. Then how to get that pension for her to help her financially? Then I suggested there is only one thing that he can do, is he can go before the court and get the court order to become a guardian of her sister. So officially he can sign bank papers for her, and amount will be transferred to her account. For even to get that amount from the account also, she is unable to go. No, he can do it on her behalf. So that is the one thing which can help him to help her. So unless the court order is there, he cannot go. And it is not that tedious or time-taking process. He can go before the court, get the represented, and get the order from the court.
Sir, can the legal services clinic help in these matters, ma'am, for somebody?
Definitely. Legal services clinic helps in all of the cases, not only this. senior citizens or guardianship, but every cases where there are people, needy people are there, where they approach this, definitely they get this help. There are panel advocates who do it free for them. So they have that list of panel advocates who are there to help those people. So they can get the court work also done for free of cost. They need not worry about the court fees also. Even that is also taken care by the Legal Aid Services Authority.
That is very nice. So they can apply only in their jurisdiction, sir? They can only apply?
Sir, I will suggest an alternative.
Mm-hmm.
There is a National Trust Act,
Mm-hmm.
wherein if there is nobody is there that for the children, even children is there, if they want to make a trust for the benefit of the patient, so what they do, they have to register under the National Trust Act. National Trust Act, the system is very easy. The concerned district collector, district commissioner, if they file an application for registration under the Trust Act, they do it. It is very system rather going to the court. So I suggest this making a trust under the National Trust Act.
The provisions of National Trust Act will come for mental retardation or intellectual disability,
yes,
or
yes,
autism and cerebral palsy. When respect to mental illness or other disabilities, it will be the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016.
Yes.
So Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016 again has the same provision where the district commissioner is authority to give guardianship. There is a process which you can apply to the deputy commissioner, and they can actually get this guardianship. Usually some time of 30 days or something like that is given for this to be done. But is it parallelly, like people there? We have had experiences where we have appeared in civil court where we have actually gone and deposed as a witness for giving guardianship. So I think these provisions are existing, these options are existing in parallel. If I'm not wrong, both the civil court also has the powers to give. The alternate mechanism is the deputy commissioner through this RPW Act also can give. Am I right, sir? Is it these powers are there for both the in both the channels? They can actually get these services.
Correct.
Most of the time, when parents are there, when they are they have all the means to support the child, but only thing is, who after me, who will take care of the child? And there is a property, there is a mean to support, but who will take care of that property and also the child? Because they don't have the trust in someone else, maybe their relatives or other siblings, then what to do? In that case, this definitely helps creating this trust. So we always suggest them to go for that. So the property is also taken care by them, and also the person is also taken care.
Very good. So there are other grievances actually what we face in senior citizens. One of the issues is that their pensions are not coming. Some of them have old age pension where they're getting from the government. So their welfare benefits are not getting in time, or some of them they want to apply. So even these things, the legal services clinic can give a representation. Like,
wherever there is a necessity, they can approach the Legal Aid Services Committee, and definitely they will have the lot of panel of advocates with them. So they can suggest anybody to them who can help them, whether to filing application or representing or whatever it is.
Correct. Even though we say it's legal, it is not strictly in that sense legal. Since it is illegal in the sense that it is their right of whatever the welfare measures from the government to get that. This is a mechanism to ensure that their welfare benefits are reached or delivered to them. And Legal Service Authority is one of the organizations which actually represents them and then advocates for them. It actually helps them and provides assistance to represent them. And then when it goes, it will be very, very valuable kind of assistance. And some of them, I think there are many people who don't have awareness about the provisions, or if they have awareness, they don't have means to actually approach the correct manner. And then even to draft application, they are at the mercy of somebody else. So that is where this provision of Legal Services Authority and Legal Services clinics or committees are there. And it is there everywhere. They need not come to Bangalore, or they need not come to Nimans. They can go to the nearest Legal Services Authority in the taluk level or a district level. It's available in every place.
Yeah.
Even we have those kind of seminars and all those kind of educating the mass for regarding this legal aid clinics. So how they can help the people, what kind of help they can have, and who is entitled to get that help from the legal aid clinic. That is also explained to the people there, so they can come to these clinics, approach them, get the help whatever they need to. So that is available anytime. Now in Bangalore, 24 hours legal clinic is open. So any time they can go to the clinic and get the help, whatever kind of.
Madam, it'd be good if you can explain the eligibility criteria, because many of the participants are volunteers. They may actually share information to other people. So is there an income limit, or is there a kind of eligibility?
For women, there is no income limit. And for the aged people, they have no limit. They can approach. And whatever the other government facilities are available, on according to that, same is available to these people also.
So anybody with persons with mental illness, again, if they are eligible under this scheme?
Yes, it is free.
They're eligible.
Yes.
So when it comes to persons with mental illness, again, this is in a context where elderly also may have mental illness which requires some treatment, and sometimes people may not be aware, and the elderly will not be cooperative, or they may, what they may need is involuntary admission. So this is a big challenge. They know that the person is suffering, he is not actually having a kind of his competence to decide, but capacity to decide, and then he is actually a risk to himself or risk to others. Yes. So in that situation, as per the Mental Health Act, how can we help them, madam? How can we help them to get involuntary admissions?
The person who is taking care of him or who is close to him, he can approach the court and get the court order. That's called reception order, and admit him to the hospital or wherever the care is to be taken, nearest care center. So that is there.
So the judicial order is one provision. Actually, now with the Mental Health Care Act 2017, which has come into play now, which has become operational, some of these procedures and terminologies have changed to some extent. It is actually, it is called supported admissions. So, and the supported admissions, where a person does not have capacity, the doctors can actually evaluate, two doctors can evaluate, and then they can admit if the person does not have capacity, if the person is having a condition which poses risk to the person, or it is a risk to others, risk of self, risk to self-harm, or risk to others is there. In that conditions, we can do what is called as a supported admission, and subsequently it goes to the Mental Health Review Board. The review board has to kind of validate this admission, and then the review board's formation actually is on process. It is still not operational in many of the places. And once the review board comes, a district judge will be available in the review board. A retired district judge or a district judge will be available in the review board. And most likely, even a big hospital like NIMHANS may have a review board in future. We hope at least the patients need not go to different places to get this review board. And in different districts, or at least in zones, you might have this regions, you might have these review boards, which will make it easier access. I think the moment somebody has to go to court, that becomes a daunting task for them. Yes. So a review board will bring these services closer to them in a less threatening manner. It'll be probably, we expect it to be more simplified, and some kind of an online system also might come, where already the Karnataka government, as actually the Mental Health Authority, has brought in some kind of online systems which are being developed now. NIMHANS also has been part of that initiatives. So I think these things will get even more simplified. But I think this is again, being in NIMHANS, I'm sure that our panel advocates would get these kind of questions also, as to how to bring a person with mental illness who is not cooperative, an elderly person, how to bring them to hospital. That's why I raised this question.
This question we have already faced, we have suggested, and that they have got the orders and admitted the patient here already. So yes, it is happening. Yeah.
Yes.
The concerned juvenile police, they come to the help of the help to bring the patients to the demands.
Yes.
The direction will be there from the reception order from the court to the jurisdiction police.
If the
They will
person
bring
is
to the
so violent to handle, then they get the
Yes.
police help.
Yes, if it is violent, the police are also obliged to actually help them to bring them for treatment. The jurisdictional police can be approached, and they have a mandate under the Mental Health Act to help. Mental Health Care Act 2017. Based on that, they have a mandate to provide help in this regard. So we have some questions from the chat box. Shakuntala Madam, would you like to take it?
Yes, sir. Miss Sheila, she is asking how to register a will. What is implication if a will is not registered?
As far as will is concerned, it is not necessary it should be registered. If it is registered, it's okay. If it is even it's not registered, signed by some of the witnesses, that is be enforceable. After their death, it can be enforceable. Okay. And even if they make the will at the last moment, by seeing the conditions, the circumstances, cases, they may also cancel it, and they can write according to their own choice. That's what will says. See, instead of the senior citizens going for gifting their property to the child, I suggest not to go for gift deed, to go for will deed, so that till his lifetime, he can enjoy the property, the rent, whatever it is. Then after him, it goes to them. So that's why we make suggestion to all senior citizens, go for will. Whether it will be registered or unregistered, it doesn't make much difference.
Okay, sir. Another question, is there any list of legal volunteers in Bangalore? How can we contact them?
Yes, you're right. I was telling that about 15 days back, when the Legal Service Authority, Bangalore Urban, they called for the appointment of the volunteers. And he said they have to do it on a voluntary basis. Hundreds of volunteers have attended, and I will get the list from the Urban Development, Bangalore Urban District Legal Service Authority. There is a list of 100 volunteers who are already enrolled in the list of Legal Service Authority. I will get you, ma'am.
This information can be available in the Legal Services Clinic for Senior Citizens.
Yes.
And people can seek help from there. Our Legal Services Clinic number, contact number is also something which can be posted in the text chat box. People can note down. And
even individual name also mentioned there. Individual names.
And they can contact us, and the volunteers, the linking with volunteers can be provided assistance through the Legal Services Clinic. So, and the Bangalore Urban District Legal Service Authority is another option where they can contact, and if they are from other districts, they have to approach the concerned district legal service authority or the Taluk Legal Service Authority. Everywhere there are paralegal volunteers who are part of the Legal Service Authority.
Yes.
And they can approach, I think usually it's in the court complex. Usually as part of the district court complex, the offices of District Legal Service Authority, member secretary will be there. And the Taluk, in the Taluk, I think the court complex, they may have the member secretary of the Taluk Legal Service Authority also will be there.
Yes.
Am I right, sir?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So that is something which they can approach. Sir, this will issue, again, this is another issue where actually people seek our help. So many of the elderly, somebody who's 80-year-old or 90-year-old, they actually approach psychiatrists, or sometimes the advocates refer to psychiatrists, asking them to get the testamentary capacity assessment. So if I am a senior citizen, I am of age 80, 90-year-old, do I have to get this assessment done? Is it because they do it with an apprehension? Either some advocates advise, and sometimes we do get referral from advocates, kindly evaluate and give the mental fitness or testamentary capacity certificate. Sometimes advocates directly write to the psychiatrist. So they come to us or any other government psychiatrist or other people. So is it required, sir?
Yes, because they have to, whether they are keeping good mind, good health, and they can express what they want to do for their children. They must have capacity to, whenever they want to make a will deed, they must be aware that what they are going to write. And for that, test is required. Some psychiatric department.
If somebody is having a psychiatric illness, definitely it is required. If somebody had a prior record of, say, schizophrenia or any other mental illness, it is advisable for them to take a testamentary assessment, so that you don't use that label of mental illness as a ground to say that this person was not having capacity. So it is good that they get an assessment just before this, whatever the will they are going to register or going to make around that time. If they have an assessment, it will be a very good thing. But there are situations where even normal elderly who don't have a record of having a mental illness, just because of their age and frailty, they may think that they are vulnerable to be labeled as having somebody with a person with mental illness, or they may say their capacity was not there. Somebody by coercion, they have taken this will. So we have seen 95-year-old healthy person coming and asking us for a certificate. So this issue we had discussed in detail with the member secretary at that point of time when Uma Madam was there. Now she's honorable judge in High Court. We had actually discussed in detail in one of the forums where it was clearly mentioned that everybody who is, even with the person with mental illness, is by default is assumed that they have capacity. Even as per the Mental Health Care Act, even for somebody with a mental illness, the assumption is that they have capacity. Somebody has to prove that they don't have capacity. If somebody is disputing, they have to prove that they do not have capacity. So it is not necessary for a senior citizen to actually carry a certificate saying that I am normal. If somebody is kind of disputing, the person disputing should prove that this person does not have capacity. It is not easy to do so. Yes. It is not easy to do so. So it is not mandatory unless you have a mental illness like dementia, or say even a person with mild dementia may have capacity and make a will if the property is not very complex. So or a person with mild cognitive impairment can make. So when you have a diagnosable mental health condition, then it is okay to go for a testamentary assessment. By just because of age, it is not required to actually have it as a mandatory thing. But if they avail such a service from a private psychiatrist or somebody as an additional kind of a justification, it is their prerogative. But because in many developed countries, they usually have these lawyers and the mental health professionals who provide this kind of a service where testamentary capacity is assessed and then given a certificate. Even for somebody, the normal person, they do it. So
what I want to say is, it's not necessary that he himself declares when he makes a will, he himself declares that I'm keeping good health and even mental issues I don't have, I'm a good health. Then it should be witnessed by somebody. That itself is sufficient. It is not necessary that he get this testamentary assessment. So he himself declare in the will, stating that I am keeping good health, mental and good health. That is sufficient. Wherein the witnesses I will sign. So that is sufficient for a valid will deed. Valid will deed.
Yes. So there are some more questions which have actually come. Devendra Kundi actually has the question. Shall I read, Madam Shakuntala, Madam?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Woman age 65, unmarried, is admitted to a rehab center by her brother. She had 15 lakh deposit. His brother utilized her services till his father and mother were alive, since she was nursed during her youth. Is there any remedy for her? So basically, he's trying to ask that a person who is admitted into rehab center and the person has a deposit money. So this becomes, I think, without her willingness, if it is admitted. Maybe I think we can ask Devendra to explain a bit more if any specific concern he has as to what exactly he's asking. Gina, can we actually make everybody as we can actually ask people to unmute and then ask questions? We can give that option so that they can ask questions more. Mr. Devendra sir, would you have we understood your question correctly?
And there's one more it's not very specific, like there's a query related to daughters taking care of the elderly parents. Meaning
she was with her brother.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead. Please.
She was with her. with her brother, but brother, after the death of his parents, say forcibly he has admitted to a rehab center, and without any consultation, he left her, and it is very difficult for her to adjust to the atmosphere. Is there any legal remedies there?
Madam,
Doctor, this is Jambunadan here. I almost raised the same question. I don't know how it was placed.
okay.
See, many people are getting into these rehabilitation centers nowadays. And what is the type of regulation there? Is there anybody to look after them? Is there any act which protects these kind of senior citizens who have to reach this rehabilitation center because they don't have any other relatives to take care of them? Or even if there is a couple of relatives, they are not willing to take care of them. They are only interested in this money. Therefore, in such a situation, is there anything which can protect the senior citizen?
Okay.
That is the main concern.
Yes, yes. I will answer that question, sir. One is that, say, with respect to the rehabilitation centers, if it is kind of taking care of persons with mental illness, it comes under Mental Health Care Act. Mental Health Care Act actually provides norms and how admission should be made. The admission should be made voluntarily, or if it is involuntary, it has to be as per the Mental Health Care Act. It has to be ratified by the Mental Health Review Board. And the psychiatrists have to give a justification. The two psychiatrists have to opine that it is in the best interest of the patient because of the risk to self and risk to others. The person, this is the best possible setting. The person's stay in the rehab setting is essential. So the admission, if it is made involuntary, it should be as per the Mental Health Care Act for the procedure of involuntary admissions under the what we call as a supported admissions as per the Mental Health Care Act 2017.
Right.
So there are many old age homes, which again are institutions.
Exactly, I mean that.
Yes. That's the second. That's the most common category which are regular old age homes, which are actually meant for primarily for people who are going there as a voluntary basis. It is not meant for somebody who can be admitted involuntarily, because there's no law which permits anybody to be admitted in an old age home involuntarily. It is actually voluntary basis. The old age homes are not, to the best of my knowledge, it is not regulated by any specific act. The best possible thing is the Maintenance Act has provided some standards. The Maintenance and Welfare Act of Senior Citizens is the act which is specific for senior citizens. That act actually talks about having old age homes in various at a district level for it's a mandate of the government, and it also says that what are the basic requirements in the old age homes. But I agree with you, there are many instances where the senior citizens are taken and then they are left without consultation, without following due process. They are left there. So it is an abuse. It is an elder abuse. So in that situation, if either the elderly person can seek help through elders helpline, they can reach to the police and then they can allege that they have been confined involuntarily and they don't like it. That has to be handled as an abuse. Any process of law that has to be followed if somebody is abused, and the police has to help, and the due process has to come. The Legal Services Authority is again another place where they can complain. For example, even in say any of the facilities, there should be a board which says that if you are aggrieved, you can reach out to the helpline to the Legal Service Authority or to the elders helpline. There should be provisions where the elderly are aware of their rights. Unfortunately, in some of the old age homes, they may not have access to phone. They may not have access to such grievance redressal mechanisms. So if you as a well-wisher or somebody who has actually found such instances where you come to know that somebody is being abused,
yes,
then you again have a right to report it to the concerned jurisdictional police, because it becomes a criminal act. it is not necessary that only the person who's aggrieved, because the person who's aggrieved may not be in a position to go and complain.
Yes, sir.
So then again, the legal service authority and the police are two sources where they can take it up. They can actually inquire and they can actually find what is the truth. And sometimes it happens, one child, one of the son or daughter, they accuse each other. Somebody would have admitted in an old age home, the other son will say, no, just wrongfully they have been confined. So these disputes have to be handled through the police or through the legal service authority. Am I right, sir? This is...
Thank you, Dr. C, for a beautiful explanation on this. Again, this is one more related question on this, that see, a senior citizen, there is no, I mean, the second person, suppose he is not well, he has to go to the hospital and get himself admitted, and he decides that I do not want any intensive treatment for me. I am already old, please allow me to die. Can he give a declaration like that? So please do not give me any invasive treatment. If please allow me to the natural process. If such a thing is available, who is the authority to decide? Can we, I mean, I have come across cases, at least in abroad, where a person can register it in his hospital. That because I am old and there is no other person who can take a decision on my behalf, and supposing I allow some other person to take a decision on my behalf, he will always try to play safe. And it is my body which is going to be injected with so many unwanted things. Therefore, I can have a decision that I do not want any invasive treatment for me after this age. Can we do like this in India? What is the legal position of it?
It's a very, very important and sensitive question. So I would request Madam and Sir to, do you have any thoughts on this, sir?
Some legal procedure has to be followed.
What is the legal procedure, sir? That is our question.
Sir, shall I just discuss this? So what you are asking is specifically do not resuscitate orders.
Yeah.
Okay. And the second issue is about right not to receive treatment.
Exactly.
Okay, both are different. So do not resuscitate order.
No, not to receive treatment, no. I do not want intensive treatment. Non-intensive treatment, I am ready.
Correct.
See, if I am 85 years old, don't put me into some heart operation. I have already lived my life.
Correct. Sir,
and even if I go for heart operation, then who is going to take care of me after my after I'm discharged from the hospital?
Correct.
That is the problem.
I will answer that question, sir. Any treatment procedure, it is supposed to be with the consent of the individual. Whether it's an injection, whether it is a operation, whether it is a medicine, whatever we give, a consent is required. Yes, sometimes it is implied consent. Some procedures which require invasive procedures or a special procedures, it requires written consent. And even an implicit consent is not acceptable. If you are operating, you need to have a signed consent. When you sign a consent, the person should have a capacity. If a person having a capacity says, I have this problem, this requires a surgery, I have a right to refuse. I say, when I am having a capacity, I can refuse any treatment. I take the responsibility for the benefits and risk related to that. Okay. So that is there is no specific law for it, but it is something as a privilege and a right for any individual, whether it's a senior citizens or not.
But unfortunately, Doctor.
Yes, sir, I'll answer that question. I'll understood your question where the second issue comes in, the person doesn't have capacity.
Yes.
I will lose my capacity. Okay. Then that comes what is called as advanced directives. For example, in this concept which is available in many developed countries is what we, you know what can happen at that situation. You will not be able to exercise your choice. You will not be able to communicate the choice. You make what is called as an advanced directive. Okay. Yes, in the current Mental Health Care Act, there is a provision for that. In general also, somebody can give a preference. Okay, I don't want this procedure. I don't want this. But to my best of my knowledge, there is no clear provisions for this advanced directive with respect to general patient. With respect to mental illness, this concept has been brought in the current Mental Health Care Act. I don't think it is there available as a general procedure where advanced directive is registered for other patients who are not having mental illness, because the Mental Health Care Act covers only those persons with mental illness. And but the do not resuscitate order, if they have expressed the preference, many of the hospitals are now sensitive, and the caregivers, the family members are also sensitive to that, and then they respect that. Do not resuscitate orders. And so if such a situation arises, usually the given argument is that you should go by what is the person's wish and do it. But when it comes to a situation where it has not been clearly articulated, clearly communicated, there's a valid document which is there, any relative who is actually taking decision on behalf of a person will be at a confusion situation. It will not be easy for them to take a decision.
Exactly.
Then they will have to go by what the doctors say, whatever the treatment that is possible, they will have to give. So in my understanding, if you have to make it very clear and establish as a document, as a will kind of a thing. But what is the legal validity of that will or an advance directive in a normal patient? A person who don't have mental illness, I'm not sure. But advance directive in mental illness provision is there now.
Yes, Doctor. See, now things are coming up like that. Many cases are coming that many operations are being performed against the wish of the person. And he becomes more dependent on the people. So this is, I would request, because the legal authorities are there, I would request them to put it across to the government as one of the emerging requests from senior citizens, and make some provisions in the law, because this advance directive is very much applicable in many of the foreign countries, out of the country. I am at least reading it, and they register it in that particular hospital. Normally, when somebody is not well, they visit a particular hospital. In that hospital, they have registered an advance directive. So they go by that advance directive, and if they say that no intensive treatment, they say, sir, we don't give that intensive treatment. Because I have now come across, even in Bangalore, one case where I am basically from State Bank of India, registered, retired from State Bank of India. One of my senior officers who was in the home, she gave a very clear directive. I don't want to do any intensive treatment. So her wish was respected because she never had an issue. Her husband had also died. So she said that please do not give me any intensive treatment. So they fulfilled that. But there is always a fear that, sir, this is not as per law.
Correct.
I also like to do things as per law.
Correct. No, I think, sir, one thing is that doctors, any doctors who are there or whoever is taking such decision, they have to evaluate these things and then see the treatment will make more benefit. Then only they are, by ethical aspects, they have to take into consideration, and then only they have to do it.
So that is a very, very correct word. That is always missing. Ethical. Why we are saying so many problems in India today or anywhere is because this ethics is missing in many places. That is the whole problem. It is not as if only with others, it is with me also. It's the senior citizens also. Many times they are also not ethical. Yes. Thank you, Doctor. Thanks for your beautiful explanation. Thank you. I am satisfied.
In fact, I will tell you another view to it. There may be some elderly who is depressed.
Yes, Doctor.
They may have a very negative view about their outlook. They may actually have, they may live for 10 years. They may have their life expectancy for another 10, 15 years also. Okay. But when somebody is depressed, they may think it's bleak. They may make this kind of a directive. Okay. So, because such provisions also have, it is not a very straightforward thing. It again can be...
You have a minimum age entry. Age of, supposing somebody is more than 75. See, what is our average living today? For male, they say it is only about 65 or 66. Okay, anybody above 70 years can give a declaration like this. Advance declaration. So, yes.
So, usually what will happen is, in this kind of situations, the law currently is the person who, if he's competent, his opinion is the final.
Yes,
the person has the capacity, his opinion, whatever may be the age, his opinion is final. If the person does not have capacity, then the legal guardian. Who is the legal guardian? The legal guardian has to take the interest in the best, say the decision has to be based on the, whatever is the wish of the person. So they have to put themselves in the person's shoe, and then they have to actually think on their behalf and then accept.
Exactly.
Say if my father say if he had a capacity, what he would have decided based on these circumstances.
Exactly.
And that he has to take decision. So it's the ideal way. But I'm sure when we actually implement it, these are provisions which can be misused. People need not follow the ethics. So this is a gray area.
Others feel it is misused. This
Yes.
person would have accepted. In fact, I have come across cases like that where people have tried their level best to help people, but somebody comes and accuses, you have killed my father.
Yes. I think
So this kind of a situation, I'm just trying to protect both of them because I'm working with senior citizens.
yes.
I'm trying to protect both of them, the caregiver as well as the person who is cared for.
Correct. Even I think even of doctors, as doctors, I have had situations where when we have gone and spoken to the doctors to kind of regarding when they're in a prolonged life support, these are very, very difficult decisions to take.
Exactly, doctor. Exactly.
Very difficult decisions to take.
Very difficult decisions, and the person who takes the decision is always, blamed ultimately.
Yes.
Thank you, doctor.
I think, Shakuntala madam, I think we are running out of time.
Yeah.
Are there any questions, madam?
One common question is regarding senior citizen pension, how to apply and eligibility criteria.
Okay. So, sir, would you like to answer, sir?
Yes. So they have to contact where they reside, the Nada Kacheri. If they go to the Nada Kacheri, there is an application. And under the Welfare Act, then state welfare, it is one of the schemes to get the pension, an old person who do not have any income. They can file an application, and that will be scrutinized by giving other documents like Aadhaar card is the identity card. Then the Nada Kacheri will recommend for the Tahsildar. They finalize it.
So there's an income criteria. There is an income criteria.
Shakuntala madam.
Yes, sir.
ನೀವು ಕನ್ನಡ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ?
ಬರುತ್ತೆ.
ನಾನೇನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ, ಇವಾಗ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾಡ ಕಚೇರಿ ಅಂತಿದೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಡೆಪ್ಟಿ ತಹಸೀಲ್ದಾರ್ ಆಫೀಸ್ ನಾಡ ಕಚೇರಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ನಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಏನು ಕೆಲವು ಸ್ಕೀಮ್ ಇದಾವೆ, ಸೀನಿಯರ್ ಸಿಟಿಜನ್ ಅದಕ್ಕೇನಪ್ಪ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪೆನ್ಷನ್ ಇದು ಒಂದು ಸ್ಕೀಮ್ ಇದೆ. ಅದ್ರ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಒಂದು ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ ಫಿಲ್ ಅಪ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅವ್ರ ನೆಸೆಸಿಟಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟರೆ ಅವ್ರು ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಪಂಚನಾಮ ಮಾಡಿ ಸ್ಥಳಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದು ಪಂಚನಾಮ ಮಾಡಿ ಅವ್ರ ತಹಸೀಲ್ದಾರ್ಗೆ ರೆಕಮೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಏನಪ್ಪ ಸ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಗಿ ಈಗಿನ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ 600 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಸ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So they have to contact to the Nada Kacheri office.
Okay.
Wherever they reside.
ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬರು ಕೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
Within Karnataka, madam, there are actually two schemes. One is the Indira Gandhi National Old Age Pension Scheme, which gives 600 rupees. Okay. But there is also, I think now it has there is also a scheme called Sandhya Suraksha that gives actually 1,000 rupees. So that again there are certain provisions. One is the age criteria, other is income criteria, and there are certain sectors where the Karnataka government has identified. So they give disability is different pension, but for old age pension alone, there are two schemes. One is entirely state scheme, which is Sandhya Suraksha. And one is a central government and state government combination they give. Central government gives some money and state government gives some share. That is Indira Gandhi National Old Age Pension Scheme. So that scheme also is operational. So in both the things, age is 60 and income again it should be there are income criteria which as I said, the revenue administration will verify and then recommend. Then only they can get.
Sir, one last question. I think we are running out of time.
Yeah.
How to make a will and register it?
I think this has been answered, madam. I think
you have answered it. Then again, I'm getting it. Yeah.
I think sir has actually elaborated. There is no need for registration.
That's right, sir. That's
madam, right. ಈಗ will deed ಹಿಂಗೆ ಬರಿಬೇಕು ಹಂಗೆ ಬರಿಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ. ಲಾಯರೇ ಬರಿಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ.
Okay.
ಅವರವರ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಏನು ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನ ಬರೆಯೋದು. Whatever they feel. It's not necessary that advocate is necessary for making a will deed. It is their statement, what they want. So ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಅವರು ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಾದ್ರೂ ಬರ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡ್ ಫಾರ್ಮೆಟ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಏನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ.
ಓಕೆ. ಅಲ್ಲ, ಈಗ ಬರೀಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದವರು
ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ಬರ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಬರೆಸಿ ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ರು ಯಾರು ಬರ್ದಿರ್ತಾರ ಅದನ್ನ ಬರೆದನ್ನ ಓದಿ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಸೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀನಿ, ಕೆಳಗಿನ ಸಾಕ್ಷಿಗಳ ಎದುರಿಗೆ ಸೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿನಿ ಅಂತ ಬರ್ಕೊಟ್ರೆ that itself the will is valid.
ಓಕೆ. ಸ್ಟಾಂಪ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಬರೀಬೇಕಾ?
ನಾಟ್ ನೆಸೆಸರಿ. ಬೆಳೆ ಪೇಪರ್ ಮೇಲೆ Even white paper is also enough.
Okay, sir.
ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇಬ್ಬರು ಸಾಕ್ಷಿದಾರರು ಸೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ಇದು ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ವ್ಯಾಲಿಡ್ ವಿಲ್ ಡೀಡ್ ಅಂತ ಅರ್ಥ. ಅದು ಹಿಂಗೆ ಬರ್ಬೇಕು ಹಂಗೆ ಬರ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡ್ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಟ್ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ. ಇವ್ರು ಬರೆದನ್ನ ಇನ್ನ ಇಬ್ರು ಸಾಕ್ಷಿದಾರ ಸೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು, ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವ್ಯಾಲಿಡ್.
Okay, sir. Shivakumar sir, can we end?
I think we can conclude, madam. I think we are running out of time. I think this is something like we can have, people can actually, if there are specific questions, they can actually share it with our email, that vms.nimans@gmail.com. They can actually send specific emails, or they can write to the Legal Services Clinic for Senior Citizens if they have questions. And we will organize maybe some short videos which can explain about this process in a simple manner.
Yes, sir.
That in a different languages also we will try to bring out some information material which can be helpful.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Okay.
Thank you, madam.
Okay, sir.
In this session, I would like to thank our panelist, Advocate Veerabhadra sir and Usha ma'am and PT Shivakumar for joining this session. It was really a wonderful session, and I would like to especially thank Shakuntala ma'am to moderate this session. And I have shared the Google form for your participation certificate in the chat box. Kindly fill it for your participation certificate. And our next upcoming webinar is on COVID-19, looking back and planning ahead. We are not having a registration link for that. To get the link, you can email to us or WhatsApp us. So once again, I would like to thank one and all who have joined, all the Zoom attendees and the YouTube attendees. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all of you.